Lee Camp.
Hello.
Hi.
I think that's horseshit. I think it should be Lee Camp ruins America with Graham Elwood. Let's get it straight.
Well, you've been ruining it longer than I have. So, I mean, I don't know. It's tough to say. My early game show career probably really nosedived America. I mean,
as did my early stand-up.
It's a dead heat over which guy ruined the country more. We'll let the viewers decide who's ruining America more, Lee or Graham.
Let's get that vote. And the viewers have said with 72%.
We should just have a poll. Yeah. Who's ruined America more? What do we get? What's the prize? Which, if the viewers will say whichever one of us is the guy that's ruined the country more.
Get a whole box of Graham's used athleisure shirts.
Athleisure shirts. I don't know what those are, but they sound great. Are those
you haven't heard of athleisure, Graham? You're really out of it, man.
Climate cool kind of wicked thing.
Athleisure is the hilarious term that's been given to, like, I mean, it's not all women, but it seems to be mostly women that are wearing like workout outfits, but to go like shopping at the grocery store.
Oh, okay. So didn't want to take a shower wear. Is that what we're calling it? Just got up.
Looking hot as if you just came from the yoga class, but you couldn't be bothered.
Right. It's just sort of what the baseball cap is doing, but like head to toe.
Whereas my outfits are revolution leisure. You know, you got kind of like your random pockets. I have random straps in case I need to put ammo on something.
Yeah.
Oh, the pocket makes a reappearance.
Come on, the pocket's back, guys. I bought a couple of new shirts over at our good friends at Ross, because I'm living the high life. But I think I already wore them. I have about 5 shirts. I mean, let's be honest, maybe 6. I don't have a lot of shirts to wear for this show.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, with the amount of stuff you try and put in those shoulder pockets, you wear through them. You tear through them. You tear through those shoulder pockets.
I was trying to put a pair of shoes in there earlier.
It's sad because it's really just him walking around with one small pine cone in the shoulder pocket.
A pine cone.
Just to feel useful.
A pine cone. You know what? I mean, let me grab that pine cone. I know exactly where it's supposed to go.
You never know when you might need it. It's the end times, Graham. You might need that pine cone.
Folks, for all you survivalists watching, pine cones are an integral part of your post-apocalyptic survival strategy. You never know when you're going to need a pine cone in a weirdly placed pocket.
Listen, you got to divert the zombie squirrels when they come after you.
This is Government Secrets pre-show banter.
Which sometimes we include on the actual podcast and sometimes we don't.
Yeah, I always forget to tell the editor. She just figured us out. All right. Do you want to know?
Yeah, because there was that one time where it was 3 hours of just chit-chat about how to correctly shave your balls. And we should have told her to pull that out, but
I don't know. She might have found it useful. I don't know how things are working, but
so to let people know, it's finally happening. We're finally getting to the JFK assassination.
Boom. Yeah, we're going to talk about, this is going to be a 3-parter, right?
Yeah, I didn't want to, for one thing, I didn't want to just lecture for the full hour of reading from a book. So we're splitting it up into 3 parts. We're going to do 20 to 30 minutes in the next 3 episodes. And this episode, I'm going to focus specifically on the shots that killed Kennedy and how it's ridiculously obvious that they did not all come from behind him. But we'll get into the other. So for those of you listening, like, but you didn't talk about how Oswald, blah, blah, blah. We'll get into more of that next week and the week after. But we have other stuff on this episode as well.
Yeah, we're going to talk about So we're going to talk about your JFK thing, and then we're going to talk about more evidence about Fred Hampton. Fred Hampton is somebody I'm sure you've talked about on Redacted. I've talked about it on my show, Political Vigilante, and we're going to go a little deeper on Fred Hampton, on how he was assassinated.
So this is a big assassination week right here.
It is assassination week. But before we get into that, I mean, let's just talk about how exciting this inauguration is and the new Biden administration. And
oh my God, Eleanor Goldfield called it Operation Peaceful Transition, because DC's just been a fucking military war zone. We walked down there. You can't get anywhere near it. They have literally put up giant metal gates around the entire Capitol / White House area.
Wow. Now, on Inauguration Day, was there any protesters? Were there anybody out there celebrate? I mean, like, what was the...
Now, there was some reports of something between, some like Proud Boy type people and some cops at Union Station, but almost nothing. I mean, I think that the mainstream media was told to keep talking about how there were 25,000 National Guard here to dissuade white supremacist groups and Trump supremacists from coming to DC, and they seem to have succeeded, because I didn't see any. But
hold on, sorry. I am watching easy Siri. Watching that whole ceremony. I mean, I was like, this is just such what 2020 and now 2021 are going to be. Is just like, yay, Trump's gone, and great. Now Biden is like, and of course he could have signed via executive order Medicare for all, because we are in a crisis. He could have said, executive order, we are in a national crisis because of this pandemic. I am authorizing Medicare for all. But
yep. Section 1881A of the Social Security Act. He could have done it. # force the executive action. And he could still do it. But I don't, I mean, the Democrats love to point to Congress and say they can't do things. We can't do things because of the Republicans and everything. So it's not that they don't have these abilities. It's that they choose not to use them and try to say, oh, we just can't. And Trump kind of proved that a lot of this stuff can be done with executive action. Even if it were to go to the courts and everything, you'd still could probably give people health care for like a year while it worked its way through the courts. I mean,
right. And then how would that look? How are they going to sell that to a bunch of Americans? That's why they will never do it, because it's like, if everyone's already got free health care and they're like, how are they going to sell that? Oh, this health care is awful. All these Americans go, no, it's not. It's great. I love it.
Right.
And, it's better than my old health care, and it's free, and I'm not paying anything, and you're not taking it away. And because that's, once you give free health care, it's really hard to take it away.
It's funny. I want you to join all of the other developed countries, so you kind of like it. You're like, this ain't so bad, Yeah.
Oh wow, maybe socialism isn't such a horrible idea. And the other let's talk about some of the other executive action. So he's stopping the Keystone XL pipeline, which this is more of the, well, it'll remain to be seen, but this is again more of the charade that the Democrats and the willful, liberal corners of the corporate media. It's like Obama shut down the XL pipeline, and it's like, he shut it down, but left it open to be reopened. I mean, he didn't really close it. So it's more of just that like performative acts that the Democratic Party likes to take. And then the media goes along and says it's fine. So it's like, I'm curious to know the specifics of this pipeline and what else is going to be opened up, because we know Obama and Vice President Biden opened up the Arctic to drilling twice. They laid down more pipelines than anybody else. So
right.
Just to see.
Well, yeah. And part of it is that, the Keystone was already, Obama shut it down for a minute at the end of he waited till his final, month. So really Biden's just going back with what Obama did. But yeah, it's going to depend on what else Biden does for climate change. I mean, if it's just shutting down the Keystone XL, then that's nearly nothing. But it also has to do with where we are now. I mean, climate change is making large swaths of the planet unlivable. Oil and gas are collapsing. Exxon says they may never recover from the combination of the fact that people are using less oil with the pandemic. So really, they are. The Democrats like to wait until an industry or a corporation basically no longer owns them. And then they go, we stood up to them. It's like, yeah, you stood up to them as they're collapsing.
Well, yeah, it's again, and this is the fear I said during the whole Democratic primary a year and a half ago. I was like, if Biden gets in, he'll just, undo or put back in place the things Trump got rid of. And then everyone will go back to brunch. So it's like, we're back in the Paris Accord. We shut down the XL pipeline. Oh, wow. That's not enough. That's what the Paris Accord.
You know how important the Paris Accords are? Look at all the countries that have stayed in it. Have they solved climate change? No. They've done fuck all, because the Paris Climate Accords have no teeth. They don't actually, enforce anything. And that's why you had big banks and like oil companies, toasting champagne glasses when it was signed.
Yeah. And, there's Biden said no Green New Deal. He looked in the camera and said, I'm not going to ban fracking. So this is just more, and this will put the dummy liberals. The liberals are the dumbest people. They're dumber than MAGA. Because they will go, yay, we did it. We got rid of big bad Trump. Now we'll go back to brunch. And it's like, oh, yay, you're so stupid. Like, the Paris Accord does nothing. We're still having climate collapse. Like, there's already people in Florida. Literally, I saw this story that there's some neighborhoods in like Little Havana that are on higher ground that are now being gentrified because the people who have the big beachfront property are like, oh, this is flooding. This is going to be underwater soon. So we're pushing out working class people of color in a neighborhood to take their land. And so Florida is going to be underwater, but we're in the Paris Accord. Oh, okay. Awesome. It's just like, it's more of these like Democratic half measures that they'll scream as these big wins, and dipshit liberals, most of them like our generation is pretty stupid with the liberals. Like the liberal Gen Xer are pretty dumb. And
the Paris Accord would be more useful if they took it all, printed it out, shredded it, and then stacked the bags on the edge of Florida to stop the water from coming in. I think then it might be useful.
Well, that is actual. Now that I'm on board with. That's a practical use of the Paris Accord.
Yeah.
Print it up and all the idiot countries and liar politicians' names and shred it and put it in plastic bag. Now we're getting somewhere with the
Paris. Getting somewhere, yeah.
This is the kind of real change I like, Lee. These are the kind of big actions.
Yeah, that's why they call me the idea man. Yeah. A thought leader. We're thought leaders, Graham.
Lee Camp, thought leader. Because the shredding the bag thing is a long-term solution, without a doubt. I mean, that is the kind of change we're going to see. And of course now, Biden, I'm giving people $2,000 the minute I get in office. Well, now it's $14,000. Well, we're pushing it to March. Well, it might be more like April, but you'll get it.
1,400.
1,400. Yeah, 1,400. And now they're talking about we might not get it until April. And
my favorite of the magically shrinking promises is we're going to get rid of $50,000 of student loan debt. Well, $25,000. Well, $10,000. Well, now I think that I read they're down to just we're stopping interest on student loans for now. Like
again, another thing could be done by executive action. 85% of student loans are federally backed, meaning the federal government, the president could just say, we forgive them, and it's gone. It doesn't need to go to Congress. It doesn't need any sort of budget approval because it's not tax revenue. So it's just gone. And it's not going to do that. And then idiot liberals are going to go, yay, we did it. We cut the interest rate on student loans down by 1/4% So yay, we made everything better. So it'll be, I mean, and then this, okay, so where else do we begin on the idiot plans of
Oh,
Biden?
how about the militarism with he's already said he's going to send troops back to Iraq to stop to clamp down on terror in the region. And it's like, who do you think creates the most terror in that region? I think they go by the name U.S. military.
And again, dipshit vote any blue will do liberals will go, yay, better than Trump. So you're in favor of war? You're just anything that's different than what Trump did, you're in favor of it. Like if Biden said now it's time to start, slapping puppies. We like, oh, thank God Trump was letting these puppies run wild. Like they're so dumb. And it's like I can't fathom how stupid this country is.
Or Biden would come into office with the promise that he's going to stop all puppy slapping. And then he's like, well, you need to you can only use 3 fingers on the slap instead of a full 5. And then, okay, 4 fingers, but you can't go all the way back. You gotta, I mean, it's
your dominant hand. Like it's got to be the other one, like whatever. Then there's this is the Democrats love doing this. Well, let's sign a deal. So we're going to be nice to Mitch McConnell. When Republicans get in power, they're like, no, we're not working with you. Suck it. We have power now. Eat it. And the Democrats are going to allow Mitch McConnell to filibuster because they need that, because right now they have no excuses. The Democrats have the House, the Senate, and the White House, and there's no excuses. They can pass whatever they want. But they need that, like, oh, Mitch McConnell's gumming up the works again. No, you mean like the first 2 years of Obama when he could have passed all of this stuff and didn't? And then again, dipshit vote any blue will do liberals will believe anything because they're just as stupid as MAGA, if not dumber. MAGA's pretty stupid. I just want to be fair. This show's all about fair. MAGA, you're an idiot. If you're MAGA, you're dumb. And if you're blue MAGA, you're really dumb.
Yeah, blue anon is a real problem.
Blue anon is a real problem. Yeah, QAnon, you've been drinking Kool-Aid because you're probably not gifted intellectually, and then blue MAGA, you've got a college degree from some stupid college, and you live in a city full of liberals, and you've never worked a real day in your life, and you don't know what. And you call them flyover states because you're scared of people, and you're dumb. Anyway, great stuff. America's going to be amazing. I'm excited about the next 4 years. It's so it's amazing to me, and all these believe all people I've seen, like notable comedians and celebrities who 2-3 years ago were all Me Too, believe all women, and are now cheering Joe Biden, believe all women, but not Tara Reid. She doesn't.
Right. So, believe all women except the 15 that have accused Biden of some kind of touching that made them thoroughly uncomfortable. We're not going to believe those women.
Right. Because and the women that accused Bill Clinton, I don't know if we're going to believe them, especially when Bill Clinton's lawyer, Hillary, went after those women in the 80s and 90s. So it's real good stuff. Anyway, I'm excited about these next 4 years. I have a lot of faith in America. And that's why I do this show. Oh, the other thing. So 100 million vaccines in 100 days, which I would love to see happen. And they're like, he's going to need to do 1 million vaccines a day. Well, kids, he's already he's been in office 2 days now. So have 2 million vaccines gone out in the last 2 days? I don't know.
Well, what was it? It was like 1.5 or something. I don't know.
All right.
I mean, it's going to take some time. If he is changing anything from the way Trump had things running, it's going to take a day or two to make the switch. But you're right that apparently, according to the people that know more about this than I do, that 100 million is kind of shooting low. That other countries per capita are doing far better than that.
Well, that's not shocking that America is woefully behind. The only thing we're ahead in is infant mortality, gun shooting, childhood obesity, shitheadedness. Aren't we number one in shitheadedness? I don't know. I haven't checked the news.
I think we are. People in prison, definitely ahead in that. Winning that one. Bombs dropped per minute. That's a good one. BPM. It's BPM.
BPM. Another thing Biden didn't stop doing when he took all office. He didn't stop the bombing.
No, the military machinery pretty much runs as is, no matter who's in the White House. So.
Right. No matter who's in the White House, which is fantastic. So speaking of, how did we get here? How is our government so bad? What happened? How come there's no true visionaries as president?
Right.
And maybe this ties into the JFK assassination. The guy who said he was going to break up the CIA into 1,000 pieces and scatter it into the dust. That guy?
Yeah. I think that the moment he was shot was about the time the CIA said, you know what? This is actually our country. This is not whoever you elect into that office.
Yep.
We're going to take it from here. You put whatever figurehead you want up there to say a bunch of shit, but we got it. It.
And we're going to take out his brother just for thinking about running to be president. Just about being president.
Just for getting close. Just for getting within eye shot of the presidency.
You won California in the primary? Yep. You're going to be in some weird hallway in a hotel. Okay. Thank you. Thanks.
They were like, because after killing JFK, they were like, we took out people just because they saw somebody who knows something. You think we're not going to take out RFK?
Yeah, I know. It's just like, they almost were like, we killed the president. You think we care about his younger brother who was like attorney general? Like, come on. Like, we'll do whatever we want.
So to dive into this topic, I'm going to spend more on, you mentioned that he said he was going to break up the CIA. There are that and many other reasons as to why JFK had to be killed. I'm going to get into those next week. I figured we'd start with the juicier and grislier details.
Government Secrets, episode 26, official secret number 1. After pre-show banter and current events.
I like whenever the game show voice guy has to pause to think about what it's coming next.
It's just sort of winging it.
Yeah. All right, stick around for, I think, commercials.
Stick around for filling time while I figure out what you're sticking around for, JFK.
I'm going to slow down words to kill time because we're vamping on Government Secrets, brought to you by the CIA and Michael Winslow.
Yeah, and the guy from Police Academy who made a bunch of noises.
The sound effects guy.
Okay, so because I'm not, I know that, we're going to do this over 3 episodes. I know we can't get into every detail of the JFK assassination. It would take fucking years. I'm going mostly off of, this is a great book called JFK and let's see here, and the Unspeakable. Everybody should check it out. But I'm going to focus on kind of little portions of kind of the things that were most, excuse the pun, mind-blowing to me. And also even if you don't know anything else that happened, you don't know any of the names, outside of JFK or Jackie or something, but you don't really know what happened. If you just know these couple little things, it's impossible to ever go back and say that, oh yeah, it was Oswald, one dude shot from a book depository. That's it. So I'm kind of giving you the pieces that make it just impossible for it to have just been Oswald, although later I'll get into how it wasn't Oswald at all, maybe next week. But for this week, we're going to focus on the fact that pretty much, even if you've never read any of this shit, you never studied it or anything, you know the basics, which is we are told JFK coming down the road with Jackie in the car. Obviously, there's other security and stuff, guys on motorcycles, open roof car, and he is shot, and we're told he's shot from the back multiple times, coming from the book depository. And so that means every shot had to have entered him and entered his head from the back, because they had already passed the book depository.
Okay.
And when I think of this moment, the JFK assassination, I always picture, and don't put it up just yet, Graham, and we're going to put it up in a second, but I always picture the shot of Jackie Onassis climbing onto the back of the car. This is immediately after JFK has been shot. And we're told that she was reaching to help the Secret Service man onto the car to protect her and John F. Kennedy and help. And so it's this famous shot of her, you know, her husband's just been shot and she's crawling onto the back hood of the car. And I'll get back to that in a second. But so there are if you know anything about bullet wounds or ballistics, if a bullet blows away a large portion of a skull, it's because the bullet came in from the other side. So if it comes in the front, it leaves a little bullet hole. You know that from every movie you've ever seen. When a guy gets shot in the front of the head, it doesn't blow up his face. And if you saw that in a movie where a guy shoots a guy and his head explodes, you'd be like, that's not real. That's like laughable. That's like Quentin Tarantino or something. So it makes a bullet hole here. And then if it blows up a large portion, it's out the back, or it could go the other way, coming in from the back and blow out a part in the front. But the front entrance is always a small bullet hole, or the place where the bullet goes in. Could be in the back, but small bullet hole. But there are so many and just an endless number of witnesses and evidence showing that JFK immediately after these shots are fired has lost the back of his head. The back of his head is blown off, which could not happen from shots coming from the back. And this is not like, oh, they found one nurse who said she saw it. And so this is like almost the entirety of the witnesses that initially, like if you find their initial statements before they've been pressured and things like that. So even Jackie Kennedy, this is her immediate description, but it wasn't released to the public until 1995. She sees a bullet hit Governor Connolly, who was sitting in the front seat, and also hit her husband. And then a piece of his skull is coming off, she says. And then she's not saying this part, but her instinctive response, immediately after the fatal shot, was to climb onto the trunk of the car to try and get the piece of his skull that has been blown off. Which makes sense that she's not helping a Secret Service man onto the car, because if the person next to you who you care about has just been shot, you don't immediately just like start looking around for go to help the person. And an instinctive thing, it makes sense, is if she's just seen part of his head fly off, she reached to get that piece of his head. And she basically said that later. But okay, so you can pull up the famous image, and this is the famous shot of her. I don't know how much we can zoom, but it's very clear that, like, if you can see her hand, and I don't know how much people can see her hand, but you can look up the image online. But her hand is not reaching out to this Secret Service man. Her hand is cupping something on the back of the car. She is trying to grab the piece of his skull that has come off and is on the rear of the car. And she says in her statements that weren't released until later. So then she gets back in the seat, and then she says, quote, "I was trying to hold his hair on. From the front, there was nothing," meaning from the front, there was no damage. She says, I suppose there must have been, but she didn't see any damage from the front. But, and this is again her quote, "From the back, you could see, you, meaning she, were trying to hold his hair on, his skull on." So she's saying the back of his skull is missing. And this fits with other things that happened. 21 nurses and doctors that saw him when he arrived at the hospital said the back rear side of his skull was gone. They, and even the main doctor, let's see if I can find the page. But even the main doctor who was there said, initially comes out and says that he was missing the back rear side of his head. Let's see here. 306. So yeah, Dr. Crenshaw is his name. And later he puts out a book about it. He says he noticed a small opening in the throat, which was the bullet. He says it was a bullet entry wound. There was no doubt in my mind. I've seen dozens of them in the emergency room. So it was a bullet entry wound in the front. The right rear of Kennedy's brain was gone. He said it looked like a crater, an empty cavity. All I could see there was a mangled, bloody tissue. From the damage I saw, there was no doubt in my mind that the bullet had entered his head through the front. And then 21 fucking witnesses agree that he's missing the back of his head. Now, this is, and in the first press conference. So this is a question from this is the New York Times report of you can pull down the image, Graham. This is the New York Times report of the first press conference by the doctors immediately after Kennedy has been pronounced dead. Question, where was the entrance wound? Perry, one of the other doctors, says there was an entrance wound in the neck. Question, which way was the bullet coming in the neck wound? At him. Perry says it appeared to be coming at him. Question, doctor, describe the entrance wound. You think from the front in the throat. Perry, the wound appeared to be an entrance wound in the front of the throat. Yes, that is correct. So these doctors are then later pressured to say that they did not see Kennedy missing the back of his head, because whoever the people are involved, Secret Service, military, CIA, they know that if it becomes clear that Kennedy was missing the back of his head, then it's impossible for it to have been Oswald. It's impossible for the shooter to have been behind him. And the doctor in 1992, Dr. Crenshaw finally comes forward, and he admits that he was pressured to change his story and say that it wasn't an entrance wound and that the back of the head was gone. And he also says that I knew that if these people were willing to kill a president, that they wouldn't have a problem killing a doctor. So a lot of people didn't come forward until the 90s because they really thought they could be killed. But it also brings up the question, like besides the fact that this shows the bullet was coming from the front, every step of the way, you see the government trying to cover something up. And if you were to believe that, okay, well, maybe he was missing the back of his head, but that it doesn't mean Oswald didn't, or whatever, then why would they try and cover everything up? But they were at every step, they're fucking trying to cover everything up. They refused to allow an autopsy in Texas, which is Texas law. So the Texas doctors tried to stop them from taking the body, but they said, no, we're taking it. And so they took it, they fly it back to the Bethesda Naval Hospital. They then do the autopsy there, which in another court proceeding, which is with the lawyer Garrison that's portrayed in Oliver Stone's JFK movie. Another doctor says at the autopsy in Maryland, in Bethesda, he is told not to cut open and examine the throat wound. He's told it's just a tracheotomy, which it clearly wasn't. And they wouldn't allow him to examine it because they don't want him to say, yeah, it's an entrance wound of a bullet that was fired from the front. So that's in the court records, is him saying that he was told during the autopsy not to examine the throat wound. But on top of that, they have to find a way to create an X-ray that doesn't show the back of his head missing. So the body gets back to Bethesda, and then the X-ray is released showing the back of the head there on the X-ray. And so here's the thing, is like, even if you want to be a total, believer of the main story, okay, Oswald did it, then why the fuck would they try and cover up every witness, get everyone to say the back of his head wasn't missing, change the X-ray so that the X-ray showed a back of a head piece? And speaking of the back of the head piece, the fragment from his head may be the same one or it could have split into multiple fragments, but it might have been the same one that Jackie Kennedy was trying to grab in her kind of instinctual response. but a piece of a skull fragment was found the following day in Dealey Plaza. It was found by a kid named William Harper. He takes it to his father, who's a doctor at Methodist Hospital. That doctor then sits down with pathologist Dr. Noteboom, and they agree that it's the lower back part of a human skull. So again, it's the same spot that everyone said was missing from JFK's head. So I'll give one more.
I want to clarify here. So there's like,
yeah, go ahead.
So it's clear that there's 2 bullet holes. There's one entrance wound in the throat, and then the front one that took out the back of his head. So we got shot in the front, but in the front twice.
It seems he got shot in the front twice, I think. Yeah.
And it's impossible because the motorcade had already passed by
the book depository.
The book depositories. If he was here and the book depository was up there, it would have been a shot in the back of the head, and the front would have come off.
Right. Or I think bullets sometimes do go straight through and have a fairly bullet hole sized hole in both sides.
Sure. But
when there's a large piece blown off, that only happens when it's the second surface that gets hit, you know? So I want to do one other, I'll wrap it up here in a minute, but I want to do one other part of this about a guy who films. Oh, and by the way, I didn't get to, so they released this x-ray showing him having the back of his head, which clearly had to be fabricated. And when the x-ray was examined with something that examines light density, it shows that the densities are all off. They don't correspond, meaning that these are different x-rays that have been pasted together to make it look like there's the back of a skull there, which is a level of cover-up. You're like, they would only go to that much trouble if it was something very extreme they were trying to cover up. So let's see. So there's this guy. He's a naval officer, and he's with their audio visual department. And he gets a call when the body's brought to Bethesda Naval Hospital. And his name is Lieutenant Commander William Pitzer. And so Pitzer is told to come in and film the proceedings. So he goes in to the Naval Hospital and films the president's autopsy. And he has still images as well. And so he films the body of the president. He sees that it's missing the back rear side of the head, same as Jackie Kennedy said. Same as, and I don't think I quoted him, but the agent that famous image of her reaching out, the agent that climbed onto the back of the car, in his initial statements, he says that she instinctually was reaching for a piece of his skull to put it back. So even he says she wasn't reaching her hand out to pull him onto the car, which to me that was kind of like a mind expanding moment, because I was like, God, this image that I've grown up with, that like when I picture the Kennedy assassination, I picture her helping this guy onto the car, and that's not what the fuck was happening. Okay, so this guy Pitzer goes in, he films the autopsy. Now he's with the naval. He's in the Navy for a couple more years after he films the autopsy. The autopsy shows him missing the back rear of his skull. And I think there's important, before I explain what ends up happening, there's an important fact to this. You might nowadays we think if someone has information, like this guy's just filmed the autopsy of the president, we believe like that information could be around the world instantaneously. But that's not how it was then. How it was then, unless you had access to a big form of communication like a major TV network or at least a radio network with a large area, you couldn't get information out to that many people at once. Right. Like if this guy were to begin telling everyone, I saw it, the president was missing the back side of his head, they could stop him after he's told 10 people or 20 people or whatever. unless he gets to a big news network. So this guy goes for a couple of years still in the Navy, and then he's about to retire from the Navy. And right before he retires from the Navy, he is shot to death in 1966. His body discovered on the floor of the TV production studio of the National Naval Medical Center, his work area. And the Navy rules that Pitzer had committed suicide, even though none of his family believes that or anything else. So why was he leaving the Navy? Why was he retiring the Navy? Well, he was retiring the Navy. This is from Dennis David, his longtime friend and someone who knew him well, who had seen the footage. David says, quote, he had some very lucrative offers from a couple of national networks like ABC, CBS to go and work for them. And David believes the offers were connected to Pitzer's assassination film. So it makes sense that why would they not? Some people might ask, well, if they were going to kill him, wouldn't they have just killed him immediately after he took the footage when they realized that it was important? But they wouldn't have thought there was a risk really until this guy's about to retire and go join a TV network. So his film has never been found, although other people have seen it, like this Dennis David guy. Anyway, years go by. 1995 comes around, and the man... well, this guy, I'm looking for his name. This guy comes forward named Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Marvin of Special Forces. He comes forward and says that he was asked by the CIA to kill Pitzer. He was a Green Beret, and he was asked to assassinate Pitzer. And this guy feels he didn't do it. He said no. But the only reason he said no was because he said, although he did do that kind of thing for the CIA, he said, I would only do it on foreign land. So he wasn't going to kill an American in America, was what the reason he gave. But he did feel bad for the other things he was involved in. I guess he was involved in other hits or whatever he did with the Green Berets and the CIA. And for that reason, he called up Pitzer's former wife and told her about this, basically because he couldn't keep the secret anymore and felt horrible that he was even asked to do it. And when he came forward, Daniel Marvin came forward, he was denounced and expelled by the Special Forces Association, which then means he loses his pension and everything else, which also serves as an example to anybody else in Special Forces who might know something, such as the guy who actually did kill this guy. These people stay quiet, not just because they fear for their lives. They also stay quiet because they will lose all of their income, all of their pension, everything else. And you have other witnesses who didn't come forward until late 90s, early 2000s, because they also didn't want to lose their pensions. They were afraid for their life, etc.
This is like, I mean, this stuff is insane in a certain way, and not that it isn't true, but I mean, it's just to show the insanity of what lengths they will go to seal this up. And now you see how much more sophisticated they've become, because as you said, it was harder for them to control, like you couldn't get the story out. So it's actually in some ways easier for them to kind of control the narrative in a sense of they can just, doctor this now. And you also see how they went, we just need to control every aspect so that we can now they control the whole narrative from the moment it gets out on social media, and if there is some random person with a camera phone that puts some footage out there, they just refute it.
And it is true that they're not as blatant anymore because they knew they could. There weren't even that many people with video cameras. I mean, they were nearly able to get every camera footage of the assassination. Now they know that they're in a time when everybody has a camera, there's CCTV everywhere. And so they wouldn't just, shoot a president in broad daylight anymore. They they have other tactics that.
Well, they never right. I mean, and as we talked about at the beginning of the segment, they will never let somebody like JFK ever become president again, and they haven't. Since that time, there's been nobody. And again, his brother got close. Nope, took him out. And since that time, we've had nothing but deep state puppets. I mean, nothing. Even Carter. I mean, like to a certain extent, and he wasn't a big threat to them. I mean, but he only did one term. And
well,
then,
yeah, he wasn't a huge threat to them at first, and then he slowly became a slightly greater threat, which is why they made sure he didn't get another term. But
yeah, and that's they probably thwarted his rescue attempt of the Iranian hostages, because had he rescued them, that rescue attempt had been successful, he would have been reelected in a heartbeat, and they knew it.
Well, it became clear after Reagan was elected that he had spoke to Iran and basically made sure they kept the hostages until he was elected.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was like, I mean, and you see now that we've had nothing but willful puppets, and all of the people in all the positions, the key positions of power, not just the presidency, but the Senate and the House and the cabinet and, you know, the attorney general and now, and the media, of course, this will never be. I mean, this was the most talked about conspiracy for immediately following it, but for years, I mean, there was all kinds of people talking about it. And so it was like,
I think that's partially why they stopped with the blatant stuff. Also video cameras became more prevalent, but I think that talking about what happened to JFK has become such a massive national conversation, and the efforts they've had to go to just shut down that conversation have been immense. And so it's like they can have more success sidelining people without shooting them. Right. So, you know, there was a brief window where it was like let's and you know, we're maybe about to talk about Fred Hampton here in a second, that there was a brief window of about 20 to 30 years, although I'm sure before that it was probably even easier to kill people, but 20, 30 years where it was like they knew they could shoot someone like MLK and not have that much to clean up. It wasn't that tough for them to clean it up and to make it questionable enough and control the narrative enough that even if some people doubted it, it wouldn't be enough to risk their power, you know?
Yeah, but exactly. And this big gesture of giving a president getting assassinated, there's too many questions. So now they do character assassinations. They never let anybody get close enough that might be a threat to them. They subvert them before they ever get close, or there's some crazy story planted about somebody, or, I mean, like Bernie, for example, he was never going to get in the White House. They were never going to let him. They did everything they could. Right. And, you know, maybe he was threatened. Maybe that was always my question, why he quit so quickly last March. He just was like, oh, I'm done. My good friend Joe Biden. It was like, what did they threaten him with? And yeah, and you see that. That's why anybody, I mean, if somebody had, you know, some evidence that JFK Jr.'s plane went down in nefarious conditions, I would be open to the fact, because they just know they saw the power of the Kennedy name. I mean, that's why they, you know, made sure.
Nowadays, rather than shooting people where there's, you know, that there can be a lot of talk about who the shooter was and where the bullets came from and stuff like that. Nowadays, or, you know, since then, it's been more like planes going down, because then it's like, how do you ever doubt? You can't really, there's no evidence to show, there's no video of it. There's no, or another example someone I think was almost definitely taken out is Michael Hastings, where his car, which, you know, we know that these type of cars can be hacked and then sped up to hundreds of miles an hour, in which case you're basically going to crash. But this is a reporter who had revealed everything about General Petraeus. He then emailed wherever he was, Buzzkill or BuzzFeed or one of those. There's his final email to them is, I'm on to something big. If the FBI shows up to the offices, say you want a lawyer, I'll be off the grid for a few days. His car in LA, this is 10 years ago, 8 years ago, explodes in a fiery ball after running into a tree. And this is in like 2 a.m. or something. And, that would be, if they were going to take someone out, that would be how they would do it now. They're generally, they think, I think most of the time shooting people is just, it raises too many questions.
Yeah. So they do. Yeah, exactly. You make up a great point. Sharina Shim, right? She uncovered that the United States was taking, basically ISIS and Al-Qaeda troops through American bases through Turkey. She revealed that, she had a mysterious car accident. She has a car accident in Turkey. 2 ambulances show up. The one that picked her up took her to a hospital way, way far away. So, and she was dead on arrival. Like, I mean, this kind of stuff, this is how it happens. Like now you can ask questions. Seth Rich. Oh, he was mugged. And if you ask questions, you're a conspiracy theorist just for asking the question about Seth Rich. I mean,
I also love the term conspiracy theorist because it's like, what the fuck did the media do for 4 years with the Russia collusion thing? That was the craziest conspiracy theory I've ever seen, and they did it for 4 straight years, and now they want to call other people conspiracy theorists.
Oh, it's insane. And they're trying to like blame everything that happened at the Capitol on Fox News. It's like, wait a minute. If you're going to say the election and, Trump was cheated by Biden cheated Trump in this election, if that's a conspiracy theory, then what, again, like you said, you pushed Russiagate for 4 years and it's been roundly debunked. So you helped create this environment where nobody trusts any election, because when Hillary lost because she ran a horrible campaign and people hate the Clintons, she couldn't take responsibility because, like all narcissists, people with narcissistic personality disorders like Trump and the Clintons, they can never admit they're wrong. So they always have to blame other people, which is like that. And
my favorite thing to point to as the proof that they were just looking for someone to blame was, a lot of people forget, who did they blame her election loss on for roughly 1 week before they realized it was a bad idea? They blamed it on Comey and the FBI. They blamed it on Comey reopening the investigation on Hillary. And I don't know, like 5 days in, they were like, oh, perhaps the Democratic Party going up against the FBI right now is not the best idea. Let's blame it on Russia. And suddenly Comey became this national hero, and Russia was the ones that hacked the election. And I was like, well, it's funny because for 5 days you said Comey was the one who costed the election.
Yeah, I know. And then they liked Comey when then Comey opened up an investigation about Trump or what. Then when he was on Stephen Colbert, everybody likes him again. I'm like, God, you guys are so stupid. You'll just believe any dumb crap. If Stephen Colbert likes him, then I guess I like him. Hillary did. Oh, I don't like him. I'm so dumb. I can't think for myself. That's why I'm still using Facebook. I'm a stupid Gen Xer. Anyway, I'm a little hard on my own generation. But
speaking of that, everybody can follow me at facebook.com/
Oh God.
So yeah, next week I will get into why they needed to kill Kennedy, or they believe they needed to kill Kennedy, and everything he was doing that was lighting the CIA and the military industrial complex on fire and infuriating them. And then the following week, I will get into Oswald and who he was and all the evidence that he was not the one who shot Kennedy.
Right. All right. Well, let's talk about another GovSeek. By the way, folks, hit the like button. If you're watching this on either one of our channels and you're new, like and subscribe to Lee's YouTube channel, my YouTube channel. And if you're listening to this Government Secrets on iTunes or Spotify, make sure you subscribe, give positive reviews, all those analytics.
And all the old episodes, most of what we talk about is evergreen. So please go check them out. Sadly, the horrific past of America is not changing anytime soon. So, go listen to earlier episodes.
Yeah, we're going to have some new GovSeeks, maybe about how Trump's campaign money helped finance some of the people that did the insurrection a couple weeks ago. That's starting to come forward. I've talked about, we've talked about on this show, Biden and Democrats and Republicans' connections to neo-Nazis in the Ukraine. So things are going to keep going, gang. We're not going to run out of material. All right, let's talk about Fred Hampton. This article, you actually were kind of...
Can I give a preface that the Black Panthers, a lot of people, if you believe kind of our standard corporate propaganda think that they were just this violent group that was setting things on fire. But the Black Panthers were actually a very powerful and important and intelligent force. They did many things like give communities that were struggling. They gave them foods, free lunches, helped out in the community in so many ways. You got to remember this is a time in America's history where Black people were incredibly oppressed. Not that that has stopped, but, perhaps it was a whole other level at that time. And the Black Panthers, stood up and proudly said, we're going to be strong. We're going to defend our communities. We're going to help them in so many ways because the federal government's not. And for those reasons, the ruling elite of America viewed them as very dangerous, very troublesome. And Fred Hampton was one of their most outspoken leaders in Chicago, and was only 21 when he was killed, which makes me feel like an underachiever. But
well, I want to first thing I want to do, and just and I've talked about this on my show, and I want to send this quote over because I want to show our audience. Is let me show this. Hold on. Let me find. So I just want to put this up real quick because I want to show everybody this quote by Fred Hampton just to give you an idea. So Fred Hampton,
come for the secret, stay for the hold music.
Hold on. Let me. I'm doing. How do I do this? Share screen. All right, here we go. No, where's? All right, can everybody see that? This is just a quote by Fred Hampton that I just want to read for everybody to give you why Fred Hampton specifically was a threat. Because Fred Hampton in Chicago, he was the head of the Black Panther Party in Chicago, wanted to unify working class whites and blacks. And he specifically, there was a neighborhood in Chicago called Hillbilly Harlem, which was a bunch of Southern whites, because a lot of people after World War II and in the early 1900s emigrated from the South, black and white, to Chicago and other cities for the Industrial Revolution jobs. So there's this neighborhood in Chicago called Hillbilly Harlem, which was all Southern white people, and some of them openly racist, had Confederate flags. He did the first ever Rainbow Coalition and told them basically capitalism creates racism, and turned a lot of these like Southern whites from like openly, Confederate flag waving racist into like, oh, wow, we're actually, this is a class issue. And he wrote this: we got to face some facts that the masses are poor. The masses belong to what you call the lower class. And when I talk about the masses, I'm talking about the white masses. I'm talking about the black masses and the brown masses and the yellow masses too. We've got to face the fact that some people say you fight fire best with fire, but we say you put fire out best with water. We say you don't fight racism with racism. We're going to fight racism with solidarity. We say you don't fight capitalism with no black capitalism. You fight capitalism with socialism. Fred Hampton said that. So that's why Fred Hampton was a threat.
Right. If you get same with MLK, if you get the lower classes joining together to fight against the capitalist system, then that is very dangerous compared to, just a black group saying we only care about black people. It's the more dangerous for the ruling elite is the lower classes uniting.
Yeah. And that's why they needed to paint the Black Panthers out as this militant organization that hated white people and wanted to kill whitey and take over the world, or whatever the way they were portrayed in the media. And that's why when Malcolm X and Dr. King actually started to get on the same page, that was when they were like, oh, this is a bad idea, because they needed Malcolm X and MLK to keep the black community divided. They needed that.
Right.
So, but this is New documents suggest J. Edgar Hoover was involved in Fred Hampton's murder. Shocking. J. Edgar Hoover did such great work. This blows me away. In March 1976, we sat in a cavernous Chicago courtroom while FBI agent Roy Martin Mitchell testified in the federal civil rights case that we and our partners at the People's Law Office had brought on behalf of the families of slain Illinois Black Panther leaders Fred Hampton and Mark Clark and the 7 survivors of the murderous pre-dawn Chicago police raid on their West Side department. So what happened was the Chicago Police Department and the FBI basically assassinated Fred Hampton and Mark Clark. So what happened here, this is the documents got released, and this was part of.
And let me just say, I think before you get to that, they came into Fred Hampton's house where he was staying with several other people, and a storm of cops came in and just rained bullets down. Yeah. So like, I think he was sleeping at the time. I think he was shot something like 90 times. I mean, it was just all out warfare on a 21-year-old asleep in his bed.
Yeah. And they of course claim, we had no choice,
right.
We had to, they were the Black Panther because
he was sleeping in an aggressive stance,
very aggressive sleeping. I mean, snoring loudly, that's an act of violence.
Right.
But no, and because they did this good job of painting the Black Panthers in the media and keeping white America scared, the Black Panthers are coming. That's why it was like, oh, of course, the cops went to serve a warrant, and the Fred Hampton was carrying guns, and they had no choice, which is the same narrative they use now in Black Lives Matter, and that's why when these Black Lives Matter protests in right after George Floyd, in late May, early June, you saw the country actually, there was a lot of people of all different ethnicities at these rallies, and they were getting unified. That's when immediately the mainstream media started to make it seem like, oh, there's a race problem. Oh, there's Trump supporters fighting with Black Lives Matter. Not that didn't happen, but they didn't talk about how diverse the Black Lives Matter marchers were. I mean, I friends of mine that were Black were like, I've never seen this many white people at a Black Lives Matter protest.
Yeah.
And that's when the ruling class is like, oh, we can't let that happen. And why
it's also why Kaepernick was more dangerous than most things, is because like sports unites most of America, and he was calling to attention something in one of the biggest, being systemic racism and police brutality, in one of the biggest outlets that all of America sees. And all of a sudden you had a discussion across America about this problem, this issue. And so he's more dangerous than perhaps a lot of other.
It's the same point. Like, look, this summer after Jacob Blake was shot 7 times in the back by the Kenosha police, the NBA was playing. They stopped playing. They stopped playing for 3 days. And I was like, oh, this is powerful. And a bunch of baseball teams stopped playing. And I think Major League Soccer stopped playing. The WNBA stopped playing. And then, Obama to the rescue. Go back to playing, everybody. And everyone stopped talking about it. I watch sports. So when that happened.
Well, Obama actually, some people don't know this. Obama called up these players, these teams, and of course they're going to take a call from Obama. I mean, former President Obama's on the phone. What? And so he got on the phone with these players and said, listen, what you're doing is great, but really what would be more important is for you to go out there and play and start an organization to talk about these issues. And basically he was like, here's your release valve. Stop boycotting.
I know. And when they first stopped playing, I was watching, because I watch the sports on occasion and ESPN or whatever. All anybody was talking about was Black Lives Matter. They stopped talking X's and O's, and you had really powerful moments where, like, Doc Rivers, the then coach of the LA Clippers, crying, saying, we're treated less than in this country. You had NFL players, and I'm like, this is going to get through because, like you say, all America watches these sports.
Yeah.
And especially in a pandemic where there's nothing to do, and it's sports. When sports came back online this summer, everybody was like, oh, sweet. At least we've got games to watch. And it was this, I'm like, this is their moment. And then of course, Obama calls and LeBron goes, oh, we're going to go back to playing. And the minute they went back to playing, I was watching all this. They stopped talking about George Floyd. They stopped talking about Jacob Blake. They stopped talking about defund the police. They stopped talking about it. And I was like, you had this moment and you guys blew it because you let Obama
because they believe the garbage that Obama had their best interest or Black America's best interest at heart.
And it's so preposterous. And it just shows how awful he is. Like how he literally has derailed any sort of movement within the Black community, if not anywhere on the left. I mean, the anti-war movement went to sleep after there was a thriving anti-war movement in this country when George W. Bush was lying about weapons of mass destruction to get us into an illegal war with Iraq that killed a bunch of Iraqis and Americans. And then when Obama gets elected, everyone went to sleep, except Medea Benjamin.
except Code Pink and a few others.
But like to get back, so you see the history of any sort of unification and getting people talking and getting people together is bad. That's why they were I'm sure that the ruling class was ecstatic about what happened at the Capitol building because they're like, oh, this will keep America divided. And and they were probably helping push it. I'm sure the FBI was helping push it. So this is another FBI op going back to Fred Hampton. The document, the local FBI Central's role in setting up the raid as part of the Bureau's secret and highly illegal COINTELPRO program, which I believe we've discussed on this show before.
Yeah, COINTELPRO is a significant illegal program of monitoring and sidelining activists, anti-war groups, Black community.
Yep. Anytime it's not a government secrets episode if we don't have either an operation something or something program, like
Graham, you can keep going through this article, but my ego needs to be larger on the screen. So
all right, we'll take care of the photo of your ego in a sec. But let me go back to this. This program had previously targeted, as you were saying, Black liberation leaders, including Malcolm X, Dr. King, Stokely Carmichael, H. Brett Brown, Elijah Muhammad, and organizations they led. As the Senate Select Committee would later find in April 1976, the FBI had more recently turned its attention to destroying the Black Panther Party. So Roy Martin Mitchell was an integral part of the Chicago FBI office of Racial Matter Squad. The FBI office's Racial Matter Squad, like that.
I know. I love that name.
Oh, it's like, the FBI should really be in charge of racial issues. That's who we want. And the control of a prized asset, informant provocateur William O'Neill, who was the captain of security of the Chicago chapter of the Black Panther Party. So this is to let people know too, when I talk about the intelligence community on my show, and I know you talk about it too, but we talk about it here at Government Secrets a lot. If you think the FBI and the intelligence community hasn't already infiltrated the Proud Boys, Black Lives Matter, they've definitely subjugated. They're probably involved in the DSA. That's why I'm sure the DSA had something to do with why they were against Jimmy Dore's forced the vote. The Green Party, they've done a good job of dismantling them. And the People's Party, which I'm very excited about it. But hey, Nick Brown, if you're watching this, be careful, because if you get any sort of power or unity, the FBI is going to have people showing up always like, oh, I'm the biggest advocate of your cause. They always show up that way. I'm the biggest advocate of your cause. And then they're either leaking information or they subvert, or there's some weird fight.
Yeah, you remember the Venezuelan embassy protective? They did their best to infiltrate that as well. We now know. So.
Right. Of course.
Yeah, and it depends on, what the movement is or what the action is or whatever. Sometimes all they're doing is monitoring. Sometimes it's just a matter of we're going to report everything back to the police, to the FBI, what have you. And other times it is an active campaign to, destroy that movement or sideline it or whatever. So they can be involved in or inside these an organization, and not necessarily does that mean that like everything that organization does is being puppeteered by the FBI, but it could just be a monitoring situation. But yeah.
So at the time Mitchell testified, he had documentation of the FBI's secret role in setting up the raid, including a detailed floor plan of Hampton's apartment, designating the bed on which Hampton would later be slain, that Mitchell and O'Neill had drawn up, and which Mitchell had supplied the Chicago police raiders and their state's attorney supervisors, including Cook County State's Attorney Edward V. Hanrahan, who utilized this invaluable information to execute the murderous pre-dawn raid on December 4th, 1969. They also obtained two other damning FBI documents, a December 3rd, 1969 document that claimed the impending raid as a COINTELPRO project, and a post-raid document that set forth the outlines of the conspiracy to cover up the FBI's involvement in the raid. Concluding from the Summit report and the liberated media documents that the raid and its cover-up had to have been approved and ratified at the highest levels of the Bureau, including cross-dresser J. Edgar Hoover.
And I think later in that article, it talks about how in the newer documents, we now have like thank you notes and thank you reward money to $200 or whatever of reward money given to what was his name, Michaels or whatever, by Hoover, basically saying thank you for your work in providing the things like the floor plan of the house for the raid. So obviously, if Hoover is thanking this man for the floor plan of the house, then that clearly shows Hoover is directing and involved in the raid.
Yeah, it says right here, O'Neill's personal file had a $300 bonus for furnishing detailed floor plan of the apartment that subsequently proved to be tremendous value. It was like, it just goes on and on. What this is a very lengthy article, but it just shows you this is what they did, man. This is how they do it. I'm just scrolling through all the stuff. In December, a year later, November 6, 1970, Hoover provided Mitchell with another $200 incentive award for his handling of O'Neill, stating the manner in which you have developed and handled a source of information of great importance to the Bureau in the racial field is certainly commendable. A great deal of the information which has been furnished by this individual has been of material assistance to the FBI in fulfilling its responsibilities. Then, like a month later, a little over, the Chicago FBI field office sent a teletype to the FBI director marked urgent, which was initialed in Washington by George Moore, and discussed a redacted FBI agent's, most likely Mitchell's, potential testimony before a special state grand jury that was investigating the raid. So even after they got away with it, they were being investigated. And then they're still, of course, covering up their dirty work. At this point, O'Neill, Mitchell, and the FBI's role in the raid was highly secret, and the teletype instructed that any information dealing with redacted, most likely the FBI's role, not to be touched upon. And if any questions were asked in this area, the redacted witness is to immediately leave.
And this also goes to show, like, they were willing to assassinate people that were not as high level as like the president or MLK. And also, I don't consider myself a Black Panther historian, although I wish I knew more about it. But so many of the leadership, or even just kind of the energetic supporters of Black Panthers, ended up either killed or in jail or something else. Some of them are still in jail to this day. So, I mean, they were just every upper level person of the Black Panthers was really taken out in one way or another.
Yeah. They really, and you see, like, this isn't like crazy tinfoil hat conspiracy theory. These are FBI documents. I mean, this is very clearly laid out. And again, you think there would be this big screaming uproar. we're not going to have that with this corporate media, especially today. And, the local news media and the corporate media, boy, they love singing the praises of the FBI and the CIA and police department. So we're never going to get, people got to come to this show to listen to two comedians, one with a weird pocket on his shoulder, talking about this.
One with a weird haircut, one with a weird pocket. It's a mess.
It's a disaster. This is our last hope, is these two clowns. So yeah, you really see how it, how they've shut it down, but that's our final government secret segment. Beep, beep, beep. Next week, more JFK news from Lee Camp.
Enjoy our fun with assassinations whole month.
Yes, it's January's assassination month.
I'm just realizing we're on the cusp of Black History Month, so this is learn more about all the black people we've killed in America.
Yes, and the only Irish Catholic president we've ever had. We murdered him. All right. Thank you, Secret Society Illuminati. So, that's our show, I guess.
We did it. Make sure you tune in next week, because, maybe next week you'll find out JFK pulled through. Who knows? Who knows?
You don't know. It's a surprise ending here on Government Secrets. I'm sure next week we'll be all happy about all the amazing progressive policies Biden has already put in place. And it'll be great to see him continue the legacy of.
If you watch like Tucker Carlson or any of the right wing channels, apparently Joe Biden is a Marxist who's implementing forced unitard uniforms for everyone. By next week, we will all be in our government-issued unitards.
I wish he was a Marxist. I wish I would love it if he was a Marxist. I mean, that'd be so awesome, but he's not. Don't worry, Tucker. He'll still make Wall Street and the bombs go. Don't worry, buddy. Don't worry, Tucker. You frat boy sellout. Come on.
You lay your pretty little head down on that pillow, and you just don't worry your little self.
When you have your limo driver take you back to your gated community in some rich neighborhood in Virginia or outside of DC or wherever you do your show, don't you worry, sweetie. Don't you worry your pretty little head. As you get in your tanning salon that's in one of your 9 bedrooms.
Well, Graham, those gates, the gated communities, they are no true security against Black Lives Matter rioters. Okay, they can get through those gates. So I'm surprised you didn't know that. That's
why you got to be out there with your wife and her gun in St. Louis. Yeah. All right. Well, Lee, this show is always a fun. It's like an hour of sort of laughing and restoring my absolute cynicism that America's done.
Wait, so between shows, do you start to lose your cynicism?
Yeah, I do. I'm like, maybe there's a chance. Maybe we can. And it's like, oh, no. Easy, Graham. Easy now. Stop drinking that hope Kool-Aid.
Because there's more laughing in this show than most of the shows I do, I view it as a palate cleanser at the end of the week. This helps the trauma go down.
Yeah, when we both are doing our shows, like every day of the week, I'm just doing a show and I'm like, oh, here's another segment of some horrific nonsense that's never going to end because the ruling state is a bunch of soulless vampires. This show, we laugh about it and it's good stuff.
But I mean, none of that's a problem as long as you got your pine cone in your shoulder pocket. I think soulless vampires, they can always be held back by a shoulder pocket pine cone.
Yeah, everybody thinks it's garlic. It's not. It's a pine cone in your shoulder pocket. It's not. It's just get a pine cone.
All right, guys, check out my stuff at leecamp.com. Unfortunately, there's no new redacted tonight because COVID has rampaged through the crew or something. I'm not quite clear on it, but no redacted this week, but plenty of new content at leecamp.com. So.
Folks, I'm going to be selling autographed pine cones at GrahamElwood.com. to fit in your weird shirt pocket.
Graham, the number one rule of merch is never sell anything that's not easy to sign, all right? Because the amount of time you're going to have to put it on each little blade of the pine cone.
Dang it. I got to figure that out. I got to get maybe those big pine cones like in the Sequoia that have a big thing I can sign, or I don't know. We're going to figure that.
This is the rare endangered redwood pine cone. It's the size of a beach ball.
Yeah, it's easier. It's good for merch, Lee. What do you want me to do? You know what I mean? I got to move units. So yeah, check out my show, Political Vigilante. We stream 4 to 5 days a week. We put 15 to 20 clips up a week. And it is still never going to make this world a better place. But I appreciate you watching it and enjoying it. And every once in a while, I put up some surf videos so I don't go completely insane. And that's all at GrahamElwood.com. Oh, and go to Rockfin.com. Lee and I both have our shows there.
Yes.
So you can see my new documentary, Graham Goes to Russia. And if you subscribe to the premium, you get my Russia doc, all my premium content, all of Lee's stuff. So
Is Graham Goes to Russia like one of those Ernest videos, like Ernest Goes to Jail? Is it similar?
Santa's in the slammer. Yeah, it is. Exactly. I'm revitalizing Ernest. Ernest Goes to Russia. Hey, Putin, are you inside the Kremlin? Like that's the FSB got me again. You know. So yeah, check out Ernest Goes to Russia. All right, buddy. Well, enjoy.
All right, man. Talk to you soon.
All right, man.
Later.
Bye.
Government secrets, end of episode.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Please hit the like button, the subscribe button. Go to patreon.com/Graham Elwood and rockfin.com/Graham Elwood, where you can support the show. Also, I have a Bitcoin wallet, a Bitcoin Cash wallet, and an Ethereum wallet in the show notes. We're taking cryptocurrency. I have a Coinbase affiliation link. We're going to be getting on some other exchanges. So that's how you support the show. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. YouTube is unsubscribing us at an alarming rate. I have a PayPal button at GrahamElwood.com. I even have a Venmo at Graham-Elwood. There's a lot of ways to support our show. We are getting crushed by YouTube. We've dipped under 73,000 subscribers because of YouTube. Thanks for supporting what we do.